Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.
Synctank.
I literally forgot how this works. That's so embarrassing. It's been so long. So I went to church this morning, and the Catholic Church, very post-Vatican II. And I thought to myself, most of the sermon, and particularly during the Mass, like music, just, about how interesting it was. I've been away from it so long, So when I go back to it, it's like, wow, what a weird, pathetic ritual for illiterate people, because they all have to repeat.
Whoa. Coming in hot.
I mean, did you ever notice it? There's we all say the same thing at the same time because we couldn't read before Martin Luther, kind of a thing. All right.
I get it. Because the whole premise of the Catholic Church is that the Father's there to tell you what to say and what to do and what to read and when to kneel and when to stand and do all of the things.
You know why they
click.
Why the Catholics cross themselves backwards? Because the Orthodox and Catholics cross themselves opposite directions, right? But the Orthodox did it the way before, so it would stand that the Catholics are doing it opposite of the way that the Orthodox are doing it. Do you know the reason for that? It's because at one point the priest stood the other direction and did the thing like Pledge of Allegiance for everybody, and they all just copied him on the same, mirrored it. So they all did it on the other side. And so the Catholic Church, rather than correct them, just kept this tradition going.
That's interesting. That reminds me of a disco back in the day. The DJ would be in a little booth in the corner and you wouldn't really see him. He wasn't the focus, right? Or she wasn't the focus. Whoever's DJing wasn't the focus. And now they want to put them all front and center, their face, this is a
stand-up comedian.
It's a totally different energetic. Jim Morrison used to perform backwards. He used to face the other way, for the whole performance when he first started. And people said it was because he was shy. Could be true.
Cool
Whatever the case, there's something kind of cool about that.
All know churches have been. You've all been to those Midwestern Nashville churches where they're all like, "We came today to worship. We're all going to turn away from you towards God." Yeah, that's still a thing for sure. But okay, that relates to my point. I wanted to say the positive thing about this, which was that the music, more than the illiterate part, the music was so bad. It's the worst music I've ever heard.
You're going to say something positive. You just.
I am. Hear me out.
Okay. I'll wait.
I listen to music all over the world. You know what I mean? I like Bolivian music that sounds like a hemorrhaging hysterectomy patient who's drunk with Star Wars music, and African music and Japanese, whatever is great for me. So it's interesting how much I disliked this music. And I realized it's that proves that there's no Satan in this music. Right? Because Satan is clearly the architect of worship in general. And so Lucifer would produce worship, would worship God every day.
Are we talking about Lucifer or are we talking about Satan now? What are we doing?
True. I'm going to talk about
Satan. Your terms. Blavatsky. Have a word with this.
When the morning star and Satan, this idea that Samuel, like this angel, worshipped God, like angel on high, would every day be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry about yesterday. Yesterday's show with all the singers, it was all right, but like it wasn't, today it's a water show, right?" And then the next day he'd come back and say, "Oh, the water show was terrible. Here we're gonna have lions jumping through fire. It's gonna be great. I really put my faith in that this is gonna please you." But then the next day, it's like, I don't know what I was thinking with the lions. We need to do skydiving, synchronized swimming, something like that to worship you, God. I'm sorry, it was not good enough. Forever. This is Lucifer every day. This is Satan for eternity, just worshiping God better and better.
Is it that we want to, like, religion wants to sublimate us to the stars, so to speak? So could it be argued, like, I'm thinking of Bill Hicks' bit around like Jimi Hendrix, and then like being like Pepsi is like he's like, this is, it's a weird thing because they treat it that the rock and roll is the satanic like thing because of sex, I guess, because of original sin,
like,
I guess.
It makes sense that any music that
but
sounds
but the joke is that it's all sexual in nature, like all of that, like the
rock and roll means sex. That,
right? But I mean, like even the church, like even like that experience that you have, that like transcendent experience that you have, if you do go to say like a gospel church and there's just like
Protestant church,
music, it brings you to like a place, and like, but it's a type of sublimation, but there's only one energy getting directed in a different place. So they're like, whoa, don't direct your energy there. But at the same time, it gets kind of weird because it's like, well,
totally
is Satan just
to like tantric sex relationships because they're putting them into these religious bound things where they say sex is not okay here because that infers sex is okay there. So it's like Wilhelm Reich's talking about with like the mass psychology of fascism, that the religion convinces people by talking about these things you're not allowed to do, the things you can do if you behave. And so it's a perfect social, like North Korean mind control training thing, especially with the trance, right? And the music is a perfect trance. It's incredible. But it's probably kind of Luciferian, right? Because that's the way they do it every day. They're trying to do it better. They're going to add projectors to the Santa Cruz Bible Church.
Well,
video games.
People are quick to call Scientology a cult for good reasons. But with Scientology, I think I've said this before here, I'll say it again, is that there is practices in Scientology that can lead people to have what is an authentic breakthrough in terms of just self-reflection and everything. But then right after you have this whole transcendent experience and you realize all these things, now it gets attributed to this man on the wall, Mr. L. Ron Flubbard, and like, this is what it's all about. I feel like that's not anything exclusive to Scientology. That's something that the church has done in a lot of ways, because people can have a very genuine experience, but then now we've narrowed it. And I think that that's why there's this this warning against idolatry, is that idolatry doesn't just mean like what we often equate it with, which is this, that you have this idol and you're worshiping this idol. It's also just taking your own experience and handing it over to somebody else, like this is actually them, instead of just owning that experience. It's like, I think the last time we talked, I was talking about like ayahuasca ceremony and how afterwards they get us to go in this circle. So we've had this crazy night of processing all this stuff, and before I've even come down, now I have to do like a group talk and like share our experiences. Like, it's just so antithetical to that processing, and I feel like church kind of hijacks that. I feel like Burning Man does that. I feel like Burning Man is like so much energy, and then at the end when we burn the man, it feels to me like they just took something from us. Like they took something from me. Like, I feel like now it's gone. Where is it gone now? Like you just took it and just.
Well, shouldn't you of all people be like synchronizing the entire trip so that it like basically comes to a climax at the takedown of the burning?
Yeah, but that's the point. So if instead of Burning Man, we were to buy a ghost town in some part of the country, fix it up, get rid of the fentanyl, and turn it into like give them all like ayahuasca therapy or whatever, but like give them jobs, and like, because Google's financing, right? All these companies that go to do their testing at Burning Man, do that testing for 5G technology in Kansas or something like that, Missouri, Ohio, right? And build places up that we return to every year and build up more. that would be a much better festival because it could be year round. There could be more money in it. There'd be growth every year. It would become a bigger thing. But Burning Man is decidedly against that. It's all about destroying the man, sacrificing everything, burning that purity.
That's
and you're
everything.
taking the purity from everybody and you're putting it all together because no one has, there's no like virgin Christians in the desert anymore, I guess. Maybe not as many. So like to do a full ritual, you just take the little bits of purity that exist in all the art and hearts of the burners.
So what is punk? That was the conversation this morning with me, Bill, and Alex. What is punk at this point? Because it used to be that punk was anti-establishment, kind of simple as that. But I was talking about, I saw like some old recordings of Bernie Sanders walking around a mall in maybe the late 80s or something, and he comes across like a bunch of punks, right? They like got the one cross earring with the leather jacket and the studs and the whole deal, and there's like couples and stuff, and he's just taught, all of them are all about the Soviet Union. Like they're punks, but they're like, I think we should do it more like what they do in Russia. And Bernie Sanders like, yeah, I totally, you know, it's like, I'm
Bernie
like,
wait,
so like, is it just which boot you lick, or is it like you just don't want to lick any boots? Like, and the hippies became the yuppies is an example of that hijacking of, it's the end of the last episode of Mad Men. I'd like to buy the world a Coke. You know what I mean? It's just that
the boomers were destined to be neo-Nazis. Like if you really look at it, the Volkswagen started and ended where it began. You know, that's always been the way it is. They were programmed to do this. They were just given German artistic license with the Lebensruhen as the peace sign inverted, the death. It's his life symbol turned to death as the peace symbol. I know there's other stories with that, but just
it's both.
Both
things happen at the same time in the way that society moves, right? Like culture is fucking weird like that, because you'll have on one side of it, you have this rebellion and you have this co-option of the rebellion, and then in the midst of that, there's people that are critical enough to recognize that this is what's happening, and they're trying to communicate that, but it's this issue of like mainstream media, right? We were all opposed to mainstream media, and we went to alternative media. And like, if you listen to what Bill Cooper said, I don't know, you know, take it how you will, but like his view of Alex Jones way back when was, he's like, this guy's actually with the elites. Like this guy's actually like, I don't remember his exact wording, but
that's where he came from too, though. Bill Cooper said that he worked for naval intelligence and that he was in charge of putting out the alien disinfo. And I guess the only real question is if he knew about the disinfo before or after he shared it. But regardless, that was his big claim to fame, was that he also was doing the bidding of the elites.
Right. Well, Bill Cooper is a weird one because I really don't know if he was even in the Navy. Like, isn't there like a debate on like, we can't even find this guy?
It could have been stolen valor. Yeah, well, I think the claims that he made about his service were hard to validate, which they would be if you were the guy in charge of disseminating UFO misinformation.
Well, whatever the case, we know that when it comes to what is regarded now as alternative media, in many cases is it self-sponsored content. And not all of that is fully disclosed at this point. I think at some point we're going to find out that like so much of what we consider alternative media is actually bought and paid for propaganda, almost no different than what we see it's even worse than what we see from the mainstream, because it's possible that there's they're not getting scrutinized the same way that you see happening.
It's actually worse in some ways, because you know, I think there's a commissioning of it that can be so organic, sort of like MK Ultra. So you get a bunch of people that want to be journalists who can't be part of the, you know, Abercrombie and Fitch that is CNN, and then they end up working for whatever they can or making their own YouTubes. And so the YouTube, even in itself, was like an anti-union job. It completely destroyed union media in a lot of ways, replacing it with YouTube characters that will tell you what you want to hear. And you're doing it for less money. That's the whole point of YouTube. Is it makes characters that will do the work for as little, like illegal amounts of money. They'll do this because they just want to do it, and it replaces any reason to pay for big shows. And you've seen like the destruction of shows because of that. But YouTubers will then, you know, instead of taking a pharmaceutical advertisement money like CNN's doing and making tons of money by, you know, saying there's nothing wrong right now, everybody trust in the plan, Dr. Fauci knows what's up, let's cut to a commercial from Pfizer, right? Like that whole market like doesn't exist for YouTubers, so they'll tell you the opposite. Like you can't trust any of those big guys who don't give me any money, and you know, you can't trust any of them at all. And you know what, you can't even trust that the past happened, or that the present's real, or that the future's coming, like any of that. Eventually that YouTuber will get a product placement, right, for like $1. You know, it's not like a lot. This is just, they're going to have you holding this, you know, item, or you're going to talk about this other thing, right? And then you're doing that for almost nothing, for like $1,000, or for, you know, whatever you might get.
Have you ever seen Red Bar when they tried to like, he was like, I don't know if he was a guest somewhere else or something, but they were like trying to get him to just read this little like sponsor thing. And he was like, I will not. He was like, he will die before he reads.
But to quote Bill Hicks, always doing the anti-marketing bit.
Right. Oh, I
see.
Clever
bit.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think
what is punk then? Like, I don't even know. Like, it's like the most.
I think it has to do with being not a sellout, and so a sellout has another double entendre there, because you know, when you think of sellout, I don't know if you when you think of sellout, do you think of it like I do? I don't think immediately of like, oh, this is a sold out show, which is like the fundamental reason that the term exists. There's a newer layer that's more present with sold out, which means that like you no longer own the majority share of yourself. Right. I think that's the sold out. Like you sold your soul.
There's a past tense, present tense thing there. So if you never say, you know, this show is sell out, you know, you say this show is sold out. It already happened.
You're a sellout.
This show is going to sell out, you know.
The punk version is that you don't own the majority share, meaning that someone else is controlling your puppet strings, you freaking puppet, you sell out puppet, you know what I mean? Like that's that version of it. But then there's another version where if you just if you're just like, and remember, go to, you know, Xirtus.us and buy yourself a t-shirt to fund the show. Sometimes that can be perceived as sellout, where, oh, you're combining business with seriousness or business with pleasure. Like you're not allowed to like capitalize on that. And I would say it becomes blurred, and it's almost become a moot point, because just like on YouTube, whether or not you're monetized, YouTube's going to put an ad on your video. So now it just becomes a question of, do you want a share of that ad money that they just put that ad in, or do you just want nothing of it and let them keep it all? Well, and the next evolution of that is like, you don't want to sell this new coffee or whatever. Well, guess what? During the commercial break, we'll just AI generate you holding up the coffee. So like, do you want to hold up the coffee or not? You know?
Right. Well, there's also like, if I was wanting to share something online that's like one of my sync film things or whatever, and they tell me like this is going against copyright, blah, blah, blah. If I monetize the video, no, if I allow for advertising for the video, if I say no to advertising, the video won't stay up. If I say yes to advertising, it will. And so that's one of those kind of like, well, what am I going to do? You know, well, I'm going to post my shit on X, but still, you know, it's crazy.
So punk either mean, I think so that's like the distinguishment between punk and yuppie, because the yuppies ended up buying their own equipment, like home video recorders and cameras and everything, and training the kids that thought that they didn't need any Masonic like understanding of geometry to shoot a proper frameage with like rule of thirds or anything. Like just go out there and play with your YouTube camera. I feel like that comes from the yuppie, but the punk is able to be punk.
You could be low info and be punk. Not anymore. Sorry, I'm interrupting. I'm reactionary right now to that, because I'm like, you can, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I just the motorcycles everywhere. I was like, oh god.
I always thought that I liked it when straight edge came out, because straight edge for a while it was so much easier to know, are you playing by the, like, are you straight edge or not straight edge? And then there was even this concept of, if you're not straight edge now, you never were. I don't know if you've ever heard any of these variations on this.
Of course.
It turns out that straight edge kind of was born in South Florida. So I maybe was just right in the place where a lot of it birthed out of that. But this concept of straight edge, so easy to define. The concept of punk, it was like so hard to define because there was so many variations of pop punk and spike punk.
I think of two kinds of punk, really. Like, there's modern stuff, but if you're talking about like in the 70s in Britain, there's the Essex kid who's poor, right? And he comes from or even Birmingham or whatever, all these kids who had like very little money. But they lived in, the rise of Britain in the 70s. Because in the 70s, UK was collapsing, but corporate London was rising and like it got bigger. So there was a lot of access to equipment and they could make music. But the other kind of punk, which is the majority punk, are the Siddhartha on his birthday experiencing suffering punk, which is like they're wealthy kids who were raised to play music. They're beaten to play perfect guitar, classical guitar, until they became master guitarists, right? And those kinds of musicians, right? They're interested in the suffering that's in between the gaps. They're new to the suffering and they're seeing the suffering. So one is actually like living in the suffering, which is the Essex kid, because they had all sorts of World War II rations, suffer, like they came from soldiers who were sent to India probably in the 1890s, like their generational trauma that makes up for living in England, while England, this small country, is becoming more and more powerful and building bigger corporations, while the people were still suffering and becoming more and more poor, and especially in the cities. It's crazy how poor you can still be in Britain, right?
So it was like Sex Pistols. Which version of that? Were poor punk or rich punk?
They're the poor punk.
Poor punk completely.
So then the perfect example of the other version of punk would be like Fat Mike from NoFX or something. Like grew up in Beverly Hills and sort of inserted himself.
But also poor punk is like the Clash, right? The Clash were poor punk, and but they were also
just poor punk and rich punk makes way more sense than having to go through like a whole backstory.
It's true. I think everything, it's weird. Racism, everything does come down to socioeconomics in a lot of ways. I saw a study recently, Asmongold did some study, and I don't know how true it was, but it was showing that there's not everything is socioeconomic. That certain, so you would assume that a group would steal more and lie, cheat, and steal if they're under the poverty line. Because if you're under the poverty line, you want to survive, you'll do more to try to survive that poverty line, right? And across the board, you would think that would be the case, that a lot of these groups, and then once they're above the poverty line, then you would no longer need to lie, cheat, and steal. This would decline. But
if you existed solely in a vacuum, reading reports and books and never interacted with the human species, then maybe. But I mean,
or if you never saw Jurassic Park, because in Jurassic Park you talk about chaos and you realize that there's a lot more factors to what makes up people, and a lot of people don't fit into this category. Interestingly enough, according to the study, it doesn't say this, but if you read it, the people who were the most likely to commit crimes above the poverty line.
Oh, but by far, I mean, I remember I learned this on like an old Sally Jesse Raphael show or like an Oprah show or something and I'm sure it was mostly fake, but it completely rocked my mind, where they were showing these pinch a penny people that were going to McDonald's and getting like the 50 ketchup packets and squeezing them all out, and like never spent a penny on ketchup. They've got all this time to and doing that across the board. And then you find out that most of them were like millionaires, and this is in the 90s. So like millionaire actually meant something. And it was just this concept of that. Yeah, that's why rich people don't tip well. That's why a rich person might still steal something from you, even though they clearly have.
How do you think they got rich?
And how do you think they got rich? But that really is the answer. And I was talking to someone recently, and they described it as amoral, what the hell, it was an amoral rationalist, that if you are an amoral rationalist, then you're free to just do things like that, even if it's against all sorts of common standards and like quote unquote relative ethics and all of that. It's the world is just defined into the people that are willing to and the people that aren't willing to, and that if you just assert yourself as a person that does it,
that infers already that this other group believes in the other, the group in question's morals. So if you've got a group that believes that everyone needs to stop at the red light and another group that believes that they should be allowed to go through the red lights because they have sirens, then you have to conflict with the different value systems that exist. And I would agree that in certain circumstances there is just cause for living differently. You could look at a city and you have people that like work at night in order that the city can run during the day, right? You have people that work on Sunday so that the rest can take off Sunday.
I think I agree, because I've done night shift before too, and it does feel like you're living in a different world among different people that you're not interacting. I think a better analogy though wouldn't be the civilian that stops at the red light and the ambulance or the cop that's allowed to drive. Like technically that's within the rules of the system. It's more like it seems that there are some people that will never turn. There's some people that would never turn left on a red light ever.
That's the system that developed. You have to remember that originally it wasn't like that. So there wasn't a DMV when sirens first existed. So at the beginning, right, cities would make their rules about their roads because they owned their roads. But other people, the public land was owned by the commons. And theoretically, you had the right to do whatever you wanted on the commons. You could do whatever. And sirens were a clever value, innovation, and people respected it. But it wasn't until like the 70s or the 80s that there was a Supreme Court case that said driving was not a right, it's a privilege. And the privilege system changed everything. And the land was taken over of all the roads that we communally put together and adopted and built. And those were put in the possession of the Department of Motor Vehicles, right? So this is why, we don't have control over what used to be a common courtesy anymore. But that common courtesy wasn't the law originally.
When I drove a cab, I picked up this guy. He didn't know that I had seen in the space that he came from before he came out, because I had to go to the door to pick this guy up. Door cracked. I saw the biggest pile of cocaine I've ever seen in my life. It looked like Scarface pile of coke, and it looked like an adult frat party. And I'm driving this guy at night, and we pull up to a stoplight, and he goes, "Hey, flash your brights." And I was driving a Mercedes, and he said, "Flash your brights." And my boss had told me about that, because there's a little box at the lights that's not a camera. It picks up the siren, so it'll automatically change when a siren is coming towards it. And so I did it, and I looked at the guy, and I was like, "What, are you a cop?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's right." And I was like, "Oh, so was that a cop party I just saw?" And he goes, "Yeah, sometimes me and the boys, we like to get together, have a good time, whatever." He didn't know I saw what I saw, because I like walked back to the car. It's just the way that it worked out, like that I was like at the door, but he didn't realize that like I saw what was actually happening there. And so I was like thinking to myself, like, is that evidence coke? But I'm like, I'm sure it's just the more evidence get a heads up.
The more evidence coke they do, the less evidence there is in the trial. See, they're doing it as a favor.
Oh, right. They're trying to help somebody out. Yeah, totally.
Or more likely, they got the guy to plead out on like some other charge, and now you don't even need that evidence. So like, what are you gonna do? Just flush it?
I guess. Yeah, I don't know exactly how it works, but I do know that when it comes time to get a drug test, they must get a heads up like in advance. That's like the deal. They're just.
I think one of these days soon I want to do one of those React videos, and I want to just watch the police videos where they have like the security cam body footage stuff. Because like I stopped watching YouTube or doing any computer for like a month, and I think YouTube freaked out because I didn't have any algorithmic interaction. So it's like, oh, we need a new interaction algorithm. So they changed all of the videos that I normally see to body cam accidents, crashes, like just like attention grabbing stuff. But it worked, and I started watching like, oh my god, these poor police, because you have all this body cam footage, and they're dealing with like crazy meth heads like that are hiding their guns in their crotches, these ladies in Florida, and just like the most insane, like shooting out of the back of the police car at them. A bullet goes right past his head, and he's got like a bloody
dude. No, that was the thing about that show Cops, is that it just invariably, like if you watch that just as objectively as you could, it's just like, oh my God,
this beats Cops because they just take the footage from their body cams from any trial, and then they upload it all cut up together and edited. And it's like, okay, Midwest Safety or Blue. I forget, man. I gotta check them out again. But like, dude, like the high speed pursuit chases where you're like, this guy is just driving around, he's just driving around, and then all of a sudden he decides that he wants to spend the rest of his life in jail. Like the rest of his life is gone because he's just 90 police cars are chasing him to the Alabama border or something like that, and he's like, tires are spinning out, making fire, like, and he's escaping on rims.
I actually really like this particular development. Like this is one of the examples where YouTube maybe is doing a good thing accidentally, or maybe the one time where it's best example where people are doing FOIA requests and finding shocking footage. One of my favorites are like the First Amendment auditors, and then they'll like do a FOIA request on, like, if someone walks up and they start recording them inside the public, they're like, I'm going to go ahead and need to get a copy of that, and if you delete it, then you're obstructing justice. So they start dropping all this stuff. But like normal people can quit their jobs and their new career becomes doing FOIA requests and monetizing people's reaction to FOIA requested footage. And I think that like that is actually a noble cause that's doing the job that the journalism was supposed to do, the First Amendment's supposed to do, which is keeping the government in check. It's like one of the final bastions is people doing FOIA requests and uploading it to YouTube or archive.org.
Well, I'm really excited about the Lego case situation. Did you guys see what happened with that? Like the Legos thievery?
Is there a development?
I'm not hip to this. What do you got?
Do a summary, because I'm not sure I understand the whole thing.
Okay, so all right, here's the deal. So there's this old man, and he had a bunch of Legos, and like now Disney's going to ruin the value of Legos, so he wants to sell them before it's too late, right? So he sold his Legos to this toy company, this Mormon, Utah toy company, and the company sold the company the same week or month or season that they bought the Lego toys. So somehow they never gave them the money that they owed them, and somehow this idiot sent his toys before he received the money, which is ridiculous. And so now the new owners are saying that they don't have to pay the huge amount of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars that are owed to this old man. So he can't give it to his children. And he's lost this like super precious collection of rare, toys. So journalists started trying to look into the thing because the guy wouldn't admit what he'd done, and he had ended up going to a court and losing a court trial or something, but then he wouldn't pay in the small claims court. He refuses to pay what he owes. So they wanted to sue him personally, but he refuses to allow them to serve him the papers. So then they get trespassed, and they're illegally unable to like visit him to give him the paperwork. They can't get him to get the papers served. So a bunch of YouTubers show up in Utah at the place trying to serve him papers, even going so far as paying a lady who's a state lady to try to serve the papers. And the police constantly help this guy. Like, they don't help the YouTubers. They actually arrest the YouTubers. They arrest the YouTuber and they search the car for 3 hours for heroin in Utah, saying that they're going to, and they keep threatening him. They have all the body footage showing him like, you're going to get arrested, put in a Utah jail. We do things differently around here. Like, they're just trying to terrify these kids. Like, we don't have any drugs. Like, they don't have weed, or like, these are like 19-year-old kids who don't smoke weed at all because they're worried about fentanyl. Like they're fine. They don't drink or anything. They're like basically Mormon. They're more Mormon than these guys are probably.
Is Nick Shirley a hero?
So like, all right. So then they arrest
like a modern version of a hero.
Then they arrest these kids anyway. And then the next day they put up like a sign that says like GoFundMe, and then they arrest them for that, saying that they're, conspiring and stalking and all this stuff. And then they want to put him on, and then they go through and they SWAT his house. The police show up and they say that they're looking for stolen Legos in the YouTuber's house. And then they arrest all of them, dislocate the kid's shoulder, like all kinds of stuff's going like really crazy. And then they keep telling him like he's got to basically, they're like hinting like he's got to get out of the state. Like they're going to put warrants out for his arrest. Then they arrest him. tell him that he gets 30 days. He can't until his court date, and he can't leave the jail. He's going to be locked in this jail for 30 days for trying to serve papers to this guy. And this was this kid YouTuber sitting in jail. Somehow they're able to get a judge to allow a bail for $2,500. He gets out, and then he has to. They basically tell him that there's a warrant, and there are people coming up to the house trying to find him, to arrest him because they said that he was delivering packages of weapons to these people, like all these crazy false charges against this guy, and he would not be able to leave until the trial was committed if like they had gotten the warrant. So he ended up going to Mexico. So like this kid can't come back to the United States ever, basically, because he fled the country over like some super serious charges, which are all lies, and it's all filmed and shown. And the best part is one of the scenes, because the police are allowed to redact some of the footage, so they've cut out chunks of the police talking privately. And he's like, okay, well, what are they saying here? They're like, well, we only cut out things that would be about other cases. Like maybe there's a crime going on somewhere else and they mentioned it on the radio and we cut it out. But we don't cut anything else out. It's just pursuant to the Utah laws. And he's like, well, the funny thing is, I have one of the clips where you failed to actually pull out the audio properly, and I can see what they're actually talking about. And this is what they're actually talking about. And then he's on YouTube. She's like, that didn't happen. It's like, oh, wait, but I mean, it did. But you're going to say that didn't, that's your response is that didn't happen. That's what your final word is going to be on this thing that happened, is that you just deny it happened. So it's pretty crazy, man. Like, cause I guess like maybe it's cause he's this big 2 million, a year, probably giving investments each to the Mormon church, right? 10%, right? So maybe that's what's going on. They're protecting him or something. But it's like it's a super weird situation. And this police station in Utah put out a YouTube video, which was super weird. And we're talking about it and addressing it themselves, because like the whole country's, and a lot of people around the world are in Denmark, Lego people are all under, like, they're all super angry about the situation. And because it's the optics that were provided because of YouTube. I mean, otherwise, this kid would have basically never been able to come back in the United States, or he probably would have come back and never got back to Utah after like 2 or 3 years quietly or something like that.
So that's the thing. I remember I was talking about Jim Morrison interviews that I've been watching lately. And I don't remember if I mentioned when he was talking about like what a hero is. And so like he was entertaining. He was like, what if a hero could just be like a journalist who's like has their own independent, like I think he said magazine or newspaper or something, but he's like has their own independent way of sharing what the corruption that they're uncovering. Like that could be a hero. And like I feel like there's something really prophetic about that, because if we're not getting what we should be getting from, like tying it back to what we were saying before about like mainstream media versus alternative media, like, and the alternative media has been largely hijacked with sponsored content as well. That's not always obvious, or at least to a lot of viewers, it's not obvious. You have somebody like Nick Shirley. I don't think Nick Shirley is a 100% organic variable, because that guy that he worked with to first uncover the Leering Center was actually what was his actual role? Like he was a lobbyist. It's like a conservative lobbyist. So and that doesn't negate the information, though, is the thing, is that it doesn't really matter. The info's the info. If it checks out, it checks out. They just arrested a lot of people in Minnesota and in California. People are being arrested. The hospices in California, the learning centers,
Minnesota and
daycare
Somalia
centers
make a lot
in
more
Minnesota.
sense when you understand the canal, right? And like the Somali pirates, and just like it must be such a cool thing to be able to say, okay, how about we pay you by giving you a place not in the desert to live, where your family won't be attacked, like where your neighbors are nice. You know what I mean? Basically. Yeah. And we'll just control the Somalian coast. Sweet. Ready for Iran.
Yeah, there's something happening right now. There's like it feels like it feels very like what McLuhan would describe as like where we have these shifts where the content of the present is actually the past, but there's an interface where there's two things happening at once. Like he predicted that the next medium that would be the message would be more interactive, and that is literally what we're seeing. I mean, that should have been obvious enough, but for some reason people didn't say it as explicitly as he did. But it feels like we're moving into a completely different medium.
Although it feels it's like artificially interactive. Like a lot of the interaction that you get with media now, because this is one of the chips on my shoulder that I guess I'll never give up. But I remember reading an article in the late 90s. It was like Time Magazine or something, but it was making a case for why your car should be able to listen to you, like why it should be able to take metrics on you and gauge what your
if you have nothing to hide, what problem would you have with that?
What problem would you have?
If you have nothing to hide, what's the problem?
Right. Okay. The justification though was that yes, you're trading some of these data points, and there's all these scary ramifications, but you ultimately have no say over this. Like it's going to happen anyways. So here's the good part. Here's the good news: is that your car, while it's analyzing your emotions and determining how much gas is going to cost or whatever, or it's going to direct you, that it'll know what song to put on to get you out of that funk. It'll know about, oh, by the way, it's, grandma's birthday coming up. Like it'll improve your life in such ways that it's going to be completely catered and customized to you in a way that you'd never be able to do for yourself because you're a busy person with all the stuff going on. And that was the agreed upon exchange. It was sort of like the level of customization and convenience. Anyways, fast forward 3 decades and all the interactive media, and it's like at this point you realize by hitting like or thumbs up or something, all you're really doing is giving like an advertisement algorithm some kind of a flag that like sell me more product in this category or whatever, and none of it really ever translates to showing you things that you actually want to see. It's things that the system determines that you'd be more likely to buy products if you saw. And I guess that's where
Netflix on a VPS for like 1/10 of the price of one service. Too, like every
and I feel like we might be too far gone at this point, maybe in like a Brave New World sort of way.
I haven't owned a car made after the year 2003 like ever, and I refuse to, basically.
Well, this article was in the 90s, so I mean they were talking about things that were already being implemented across the board way before.
But my cars are manuals, so it's like most of my things are pretty much. I don't do that. I don't even use System D. I don't imagine ever having a car that like can be shut down from a chip from like a what's it called again? The Dolphin Zero. What's it called? The something Zero.
Barracuda or something.
Flipper Zero. Like I don't want a car that you can shut down with a Flipper Zero or open like like you can just run around in Santa Cruz just opening Teslas like with a Flipper Zero. Like it's not.
Yeah, it's fun to cut off Teslas if they're self-driving because they can't do shit. And you'll see the person just like freaking out. It's like, sorry, bro.
Oh my god.
I don't know. And then if you did get hit, you'd be like, dude, you fucking rear-ended. Like, there's a problem with your.
I like the Tesla thing because it's like California is 1984. Like my mom hates Tesla so much, gritting her teeth because she's like a mind-controlled liberal, but she invested in Tesla. Like I have to remind her, like you were. Back when the liberal, like when Big Brother told you to invest in Oceania, you were an ally to Oceania, and now
is this pre or post Elon Musk purchasing Tesla? Because a lot of people think that like he created it. He just went out there and bought it.
I think she got in after and because of Elon Musk, because he was a liberal heartthrob. He was
the whole
guy,
thing at the time was be like Elon, dude. I remember vividly.
Leftists loved Elon, and that's like it's weird to pretend like we can't remember this, but maybe in other states it wasn't as big. But in California, leftists and Teslas were like beyond Prius people. It was the next thing beyond a Prius was that you had a Tesla. You were like full on F you to oil. You loved Al Gore, like this was the Tesla kind of mentality. And so now for it to be flipped around, why exactly? Because this dude who was famous for criticizing Trump, Elon Musk criticized Trump in 2016 over the 2017 over the breaking the Paris peace treaties, right?
We promised not to pollute and you promised to.
The climate treaties, right? We got out of that. He was super upset about that. And so what was his response? Well, try to get involved somehow with the US government to do something about it, to make it better. So at this point, the liberals were still like, should have been like, okay, this is what you do. I mean, even Nancy Pelosi works with Trump by definition. So that is the Democrat.
Well, it's impossible for Nancy to hate anybody because she's Catholic. That's what she said. She said it's impossible. She can't hate. It's not
because
even
of the pills she's on, I think, and the ice cream is so expensive. But
again, another perk of being a Catholic is that you can just lie and then go and pay money and tell someone that you lied, and then you're good to go again.
But their ice cream isn't as good as the Mormons. I'm telling you, dude. Like the way they do things are just better. It's so much better.
I think that there's something to confession, but I don't understand the booth. I don't think the booth is healthy. I think confession though is good. That's what podcasts are good for, is confession. You know, things like to just really give yourself a platform to confess. You know, like to do it all shady with like some guy behind the other side of the grating. Like, no, that's not the way to confess, dude. You want to. Like, you don't want to pray in public because Jesus said, don't do that. You go into private where God can hear you in private. That's the way
how do you
pray.
think, what is the value of a confession? When should you do a confession? Why should you do a confession?
To let go of your burden.
Okay.
To let it go and to be free from the weight of that thing that's just like, this is what it is. Like I get the value of confession. I don't get the masturbation booth confession where the guy's just on the other side, just like I don't understand.
Well, no, that's the Mormon version where it's like, to tell me all about the last time that you touched yourself.
Yeah, Mormons go to their Mormons will go to their deacon and will talk to the guy who's like the church, the ward kind of administrator.
It's a confession by any other name.
It's not
this is
quite
why
the same.
Therapy is like worthless to me now. Like I think it's always been kind of worthless to somebody like me because I will share like the most private things about myself with just about anybody. Like and like that, like people go to a therapist so that they won't. One of the main reasons is that so they can share these things and not have it come back and bite them in the ass. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to have repercussions if I shared this and now I have to deal with this drama. So you have the therapist. It's a safe place. But like for me, I'm like, dude, I just share just about everything with anybody. Like you have a question for me, I'll do my best to give you an honest answer, and I'll just come like that's not I could use some somatic therapy maybe. If I was going to do therapy, I'd like go scan my body, like to find the not in a conceptual way. I don't need to talk about my fucking problems. That's why same thing applies to the masturbation booth confession. Like I don't get the value of that. I do get the value of just being a transparent person. That's like in the positive sense of like, what do you want to know? Energetically, it's like I think it's
healthy. Like I agree. I don't have a problem talking about my life. Like my dad died recently, and like I could talk about these things, but I feel like it doesn't benefit as much as maybe it could be such a great thing for people. Like I should be like make a whole thing about it, but at the same time, the more I try to focus on making things better, then the less I want to focus on like the trouble. But I guess at the same time, you should focus on how you work through problems.
It's not about what you do or even what you say. If that's what it takes for you to experience that energetic of just being vulnerable and being open, like it's in a place of vulnerability that you can actually make sense of things. That's the problem I see with online culture is like no one wants to be wrong about anything ever. They're terrified of it. It seems to be like the biggest thing. Oh my God, you were wrong. And like that doesn't I don't get why we couldn't just be like, oh, well, now I'll just adjust. If somebody points something out that I didn't know, now I'll adjust accordingly. Like, why does it have to be like, now I'm joining this tribe if I even entertain this other perspective? Like, what is all of this?
But you're ignoring that there's so much kayfabe that's also happening in all of, social media. So there's no room in kayfabe for therapy, right?
Right. Fair. But I mean, there's all kinds of different modalities for therapy. So it's kind of like an ambiguous kind of thing. But I guess I'm just speaking more to like when the nature of like what is like the most popular kind of therapy, I think, is just where somebody wants to share their problems with somebody and have somebody listen. And it really sucks if people can't have that in their personal life. And it shouldn't have to be that just like that you're complaining or you got some other angle, some manipulative thing. Like, I mean, I don't know. I think it's weird that people get paid money to like just to listen to somebody in that way, like when the person themselves could be, there's all kinds of outlets to share.
It's kind of funny too, though, because that was one. I mean, there was more than one complaint, but that was one of the main complaints during the Reformation, right? Where the Protestants were like, didn't want the confessional booth. They didn't want you to be able to pay your sins away. And then ultimately it was like, we don't have to play by any of your rules. If I can just read this book, then I'm good to go. And million variations of that. But the Catholic Church, it was like, it offered confessional. It also required confessional. Like you have to go to confession if you want to actually go to heaven at the end of or if you want to be able to go to purgatory and then eventually go to heaven. But that once you leave and you become a Protestant, it's almost like now there's no confessional. Like they got rid of it to the point where now you got to go and find a therapist for yourself. So then it's like, well, I'm not going to pay the church money to be my therapist. I'll pay this secular person to be my therapist. But it's sort of like potato in that.
As somebody who's like, I was raised having to go to chapel 6 days a week for my entire childhood. I went through ministerial training, all this stuff. What I'm seeing from like the people with the biggest platforms presenting themselves as Christians is that they seem to be, tying back to what you were saying at the beginning of the conversation, the most either like people were illiterate for so long, and the momentum and the residue of that carrying over into what the church presents as Christianity. I can't help but when I look at most of the people with the big platforms presenting a version of Christianity, I'm like, where did this come from? Did we not read the same book? Like, what book are you referencing? Because the book that I read had a largely different scope.
That's entirely the problem, though, is that if
you're
about
the illiterate ones. The only way to actually remain a Trinitarian Catholic, or I guess just Trinitarian Christian, is to be kind of illiterate. Because if you read too much of it, then you know too much to actually.
I don't know if that's fair. I say that.
No, hold on. Yeah.
I think that might be true for Catholics, not Trinitarians.
Where does Paul talk about the Trinity? No, it's worse for. That's why I stopped myself. It's worse for the Protestants, because the Protestants' whole thing is that there are no keys. See, the Catholics have the justification to say, well, the Bible was just this thing that happened later from a guy who never met Jesus, but the keys to Peter, right? But no, the Lutherans have to pretend that the manual to the game is all that matters. So if they're going to say that the Bible matters so much and then not read it, so there are Lutherans that are pretty cool that are obsessed with the Bible, but like in a weird D&D kind of way,
like Marx,
all the rules too much. It's like a German mentality that Lutherans have, that they have to understand all the rules to everything.
The other thing that Martin Luther wrote the most about were the changelings and how they were all Jews and the changelings. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Norman O'Brown's
I got it.
Life Against Death. That's a good one. Norman O'Brown's Life Against Death, where he goes over all of that. Where Protestantism came from. It came from a toilet. It came from Martin Luther sitting on the toilet where he had his big revelation, and that has psychological implications.
So did Back to the Future with Doc.
I think that's what I was referencing. I thought that for years. Yeah, he was hanging.
So Protestant is just basically not Catholic, and then Protestant has so many denominations under it, right? Because there are Trinitarian Protestants. They might not be as popular among the but they're
I'm telling you, it's the same conversation as the punk conversation, just applying it. Oh, I'm sorry.
All the Trinitarians are Protestants, pretty much, that I've interacted with, but it's weird because that you would think would be against their rules because it's not in the Bible. If you're a fundamentalist biblical Christian and you have to believe only things in the Bible, there's no mention of the Trinity.
I don't know if that's true, though, because
really shallow inferences that they can use as an excuse.
Well, but the Trinity could be observed by just reading the Bible and by interpreting certain passages. You could be like,
the same reason that the Pythagorean theorem exists, because Euclidean geometry, because a pyramid, because you're going to your sacred geometry exists everywhere, even in patterns that you experience. This synchronicity,
right? So the 47th proposition of Euclid,
in the Bible, with this triangle, all good things come in threes, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. But the irony is, it's easier to understand that from the beginning. A squared equals b. You don't have to arrive at a squared, b squared, c squared. That's where you should start to start looking for those patterns. But that doesn't make anything about the Bible a Trinitarian system. So for them to say like Father, Son, Holy Spirit are this one person, well, okay, but that's not said anywhere in the Bible. It's constantly contradicted. Jesus is speaking to his Father, kind of asking him not to make him do this thing. There's a very dynamic, different personality between those two.
Father, why have
Is
you
there, though?
forsaken me?
Because what about the Book of Job? The Book of Job is essentially God talking to
Job
himself.
is not
no?
a Trinitarian character.
Right.
Well,
And
but,
if
but it's the
anything,
same
Job talks
concept.
about Lucifer.
The same way. But the same way that Jesus could talk to his Father would be the same way that God could talk to his adversary, no?
So that's actually interesting, because what it says in Job is in Hebrew, it says like that in those days, the sons of God came to walk with the Father, and the Adonai, Baruch Adonai Elohim, and Satan was also with them. So it both infers that this is when the sons of God, which are the angels, but we translate it in like new NIV to angels, but it specifically says sons of God came down there. So it's many sons of God, not just one. And it's plausible that Satan is one of the sons of God, because it says the sons of God are there, but also to make it clear, Satan was with those sons of God. Like, it wasn't like just some of the sons of God, it was all of them, or Satan's this extra character. But it seems like it's suggesting it's another son of God.
Does it say Satan as adversary? Satan means adversary. It
Satan,
says in the Hebrew it's Satan.
Yeah, as a title, though, as the title,
Right.
the adversary, right? Or however that works in Hebrew. So then it goes on, and there's this conversation between the sons, but it shows that it's not a Trinitarian belief even at that point. And at that point, God takes Job all around the world and shows him that there's leviathans and all these different faculties.
The Trinity thing is kind of weird, because it reminds me of what, like, so the Ari was heavily influenced by Aristotle, and that ended up changing the face of Kabbalah from that moment forward, even in in regular Jewish mysticism. And that relates because the dialectic that Aristotle projected, which the Ari then applied himself, was very similar to the Trinity, in that you have this side, that side. It's where we get this idea of like the pillars, and then there's like when you say Chokhmah, Bina, and Keter, like that's like a Trinity. It's a supernal triad, right? But the treatment of that as influenced by Aristotle is looking at that as a duality, when the whole thing was like completely non-dual, because there is no depiction of that Kabbalistic tree in the Zohar or the Sefer Yetzirah or the Bahir or any of these places that all came in like the Middle Ages, where they started depicting the thing, and they treated it like a map, which is very two-dimensional. You know what I mean? Like, it's like the whole thing is twisting. So it reminds me of, like, it's kind of cheesy, but like how Nassim Haramein had that like model where he's like looking at the solar system, and he's like, we have this disk thing. Like, I grew up with it, you grew up with it, like I'm sure like in school, like elementary school, they're like, oh, here's the universe, and you're like, no, these things are twisting through space in these different patterns that are, sometimes unique. Like Venus forms a pentagram if you mark out its own places where it traces its own pathway, where it like intersects with where it's been, and you point that out, and it's like, dude, it gives you a pentagram, which I guess is why it's a symbol for Venus. But anyway, no, I see that there's like a duality being projected here, and it totally applies to the nature of the Trinity, where you're like, oh, it's three, but it's one, but then
Christ already liked another number. That's the thing. It's like, so sure, like 3 is a cool number, like that's fine, but like it discounts the other sons of God, specifically Satan. It discounts the divine mother. It already exists as a thing when you go Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Like, what the hell is this? Why are we doing 4 and calling it 3? That is the most 1984 part of this. 3 is 4. Like, what are we even doing? But Christ liked 8, right? 8's the number. 8's the number.
You're saying the gematria of the most used version of Jesus Christ in the Greek, it equals 888. So Christ liked 8, or do you have another reason?
8 has tons of reasons, dude. It's the number of the Melchizedek, because you've got the first off, the 8th day is the day of circumcision. 8 people survived Noah's flood. There's so many other things. The Christ rises on the 8th day, right? It's the 8th day of the week, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying. I was like, he arrives on the 3rd day, dog. It has to. That's
no,
why
he rises 3 days later.
Ritual.
That's true that they say this 3 day later thing, but it's on the 8th day that Christ rises of the week, right? So like it's revealed, like God is reborn.
8 days a week. That's what the Beatles were trying to tell us.
I thought it was always about Lucifer worshiping, but I think you're right. I think it was about the other son of God. But yeah, so the other thing is the Ixtus symbol, right? Like the symbol of the fish was originally a wheel, right? Let me try to find the
Whenever I
Ixtus.
see that fish symbol, I just see a Vesica Pisces that's inferring that these circles keep going. Like that's what that tail looks like to me. It's like, oh, continue on with this pattern, and you'll end up with what's now popularized as the seed of
this
life.
is a newer version of it. This is not the original. The original is here. This is the original symbol. This is IXOYE, you know, like all Greek together.
This is what the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were trying to enlighten us to with the pizza.
But do you see how it's written? Because if you look at the circle here, the circle has an I put in it, an X put across it, right? An I in it, an X put across it with the E added, E right there, and the Y. So this is actually all of the symbols in one symbol.
This is old graffiti, dog. This isn't Jesus's grave.
Well, this is the Ixtus symbol. This is the symbol that, you know, people associate with Christianity before the fish.
Right.
Was the eight-pointed spoke, and that was the secret symbol of Christ, right? That's
oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't getting what you're getting at. Okay, no, that's fair.
That's the original. The original version is not a fish. It's actually the letters put together to make an eight-pointed spoke, which is a lot like the Kara, right?
Wasn't it's the fish that Philip K. Dick saw? That woman showed up at his door and she was wearing the fish necklace, and then there was like this like pink light or something reflection, and it just said it was like that was the whole basis of the exogesis, was like how he was affected by this shining Jesus fish. That was his thing
in real life.
In real life, yeah.
So the Dharma chakra, right? This is originally it was 8 spokes.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah. It's an 8-pointed star in the star card in the Marseille Tarot. And then that became like Crowley has that as a 7-pointed star, but like it's traditionally an 8-point star, which I always thought was really trippy with Nicole Kidman, how frequently she's pictured with the 8-pointed star over and over and over again. At the end of the remake of the Stepford Wives, she dies in the center of an 8-pointed star. In obviously Eyes Wide Shut, and they're dancing with the Hungarian vampire. She's got the 8-pointed star behind her. In Bewitched, there's just like she goes on a stage and it's just 8-pointed stars everywhere. Like I don't know.
Neff, we got to get the Legos back. Did you hear the story about Utah with the police and the Lego? We have to figure something out. I mean, that's the kind of thing that makes people think it makes us look bad. We gotta fix this Lego situation.
We had somebody trying to hang out with us. Apparently, I was looking at the comments earlier.
Oh yeah.
RGZ Mac was in Santa Cruz and he fell off a roof.
What?
And he was like, "You may have seen me getting flown from a helicopter to Stanford."
What did you do, bro? Oh no. Are you okay?
Yeah, I know. I'm like, dude, I mean, I've been pretty busy. You've probably been busy too with your family.
Yeah,
but like,
I mean, not as busy as he has, apparently. I thought I was pretty busy dealing with like death and stuff. He's falling off roofs. Dealing with life is a lot harder than death, I've heard. Man, I'm sorry to hear that, Jeezy. You're a cool guy. That's harsh. Well, we should talk sometime.
Yeah, I would say let's hang out in person, but it seems like that ship has sailed.
Well,
apparently.
soon. I hope you're doing okay, man.
Yeah, no more podcasting from the roof.
Oh, the sun's
off
gonna be
the
like
roof,
right
bro,
over my
landed
head.
on my face. I was unresponsive, and they life flighted me to Stanford. I'm all good now. Oh man.
Oh, bro. That's crazy.
Sorry to hear that. Yeah.
Go ahead and hit a thumbs up if you haven't already, RGZ. Let's go ahead and milk you for a little bit too.
Oh, this is hard.
Somebody says a serpent on page 84 recently led me to Shalom being 84. Good old schizophrenic. But I mean, I don't know the 84 thing, but I do know that the gematria of Nachash is the same gematria as Mashiach. Serpent in Hebrew has the same gematria as Messiah, which is 358, and they happen to be Fibonacci numbers, but
oh, did you? Okay, I should share it just because no one knows about it yet, but like my app I made here. So in case you ever want to do like an audio thing, you got to go to, what's it called? I called it Moss Landing.
What's Moss Landing?
Moss Landing's a place with the fucking lithium place that burnt down. It was the largest lithium, whatever. It's not just a storage place. What was it?
Well, it's like there was MK Ultra, Operation Artichoke, all the artichoke farming that was there. That's where the SoQuel Indians or whatever the weird tribe that used to live.
It's 14 miles from my house.
And then there's like nuclear power that they shut down or they've replaced with some kind of geothermal, or it's like geothermal power. It's a really interesting place that no one knows enough about. But anyway, this program here is called Moss Landing, and so what it is the best voice cloning software that exists. And I made a Windows version too. It was Mac Linux, and I'm going to BSD version, of course. But there's a Windows version for because apparently a lot of you do that. The Mac version's really cool. It's written in Swift separately, and it looks good. But they all work the same. So the way it works is it downloads the model for you. You can switch which model you want, and then you've got like a graphical user interface that lets you put in whatever audio you want to hear. So I did like a 6-second voice clip, and I made this one. Hold on, I should make it easier to do this.
And this is to get around the censorship and feeding more money into what, 11 Labs?
I mean, this is free. You definitely don't need 11 Labs to do this, and I think it sounds better than 11 Labs. Here, let me how do I better switch the tab and then do this probably?
John Gregory Nicholas II was born on July 4th, 1949.
I can hear it.
Had the same name and was called John, so his son became Greg. He grew up in Mountain View, California, back when Silicon Valley was still orchards and open space. His grandfather had a small apricot orchard, and Greg helped dry apricots in the summer.
So that's from a single 6-second clip of the Haunted Mansion, and it gets Paul Frees's voice perfectly, which is the one I've had the hardest time with ever.
I'm lost a little bit. Why the Haunted Mansion? What?
Well, so that was my father's eulogy. So I took my mom's written eulogy and I decided to put it in the voice of Paul Frees from the Haunted Mansion.
What do you mean from the Haunted Mansion?
Like the Disney ride Haunted Mansion?
Oh.
Like the narration.
Oh, is that when you're walking through it? It's the narration you hear?
Yeah, come in.
So when it opened on August 9th, 1969, the same day as Helter Skelter, was that voice what people heard when they walked through it? Like from the very get-go? Okay.
And more than that, Paul Frees is famous as the man with 1,000 voices. He's more famous than Mel Blanc, who did Bugs Bunny. He did voices for every narration, for everything in the 60s, every trailer he was a trailer guy. He did the cartoon voices, George of the Jungle. Like he did just thousands of things.
Did he sing too?
I don't know. I never heard him do it, but maybe. But like Paul Frees's voice is really specific and famous, but he did all these different characters and he's famous for that one. The other one I did was, let me see if I can find it, was the voice of, from the Time Machine and 101 Dalmatians. Forget his name right now.
John Gregory Nicholas II was born on July 4th, 1949.
Rod Taylor or something?
His father had the same name and was called John, so his son became Greg. He grew up in Mountain View, California, back when Silicon Valley was still orchards and open space. His grandfather had a small apricot orchard, and Greg helped dry apricots in the summer. That image feels like the beginning of a whole world, California, before the tech boom, before the orchards became office parks, before the valley changed forever.
That's from like 6 seconds from The Birds, from Hitchcock's The Birds with Rod Taylor.
Oh shit!
But so it's crazy because like that's all on on a MacBook Air. Like just generates itself. So imagine if you have a reasonable computer. But yeah, so download that app if you want to do like voice training. It's pretty decent.
Do you have the ABBA songs?
True. We got to find that one. Hold on. We found this song the other week we were listening to.
That's the next holy grail, is localized music generation that sounds as good as Suno.
It's coming. I've seen some good stuff, but it in terms of rapidity, that's not there. What you want is something that could just go on and on forever. You know what I mean? That's all you really need.
I don't know about that. I'm okay with songs ending after like a minute or two.
Well, I think the thing is you and I are, but what people want is something that they push play on while they're working all day, breaking concrete, and it just makes music all day like a radio station would. They want just generative. They don't want to know what's playing.
I don't know if that's what people
They don't want to be
want.
distracted by it.
I don't
They
know.
just want to have a good feeling.
I don't know if that's what people want, though.
I think you're wrong.
Oh shit! Dun dun.
Yeah, that was it. I think I found it.
I think ultimately people want to be able to like share an experience. So there's still going to be a reason that like we both, even if we didn't do it at the same time, that we both saw the same movie or we both heard the same album or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think there will be some people that do, things will meme. That's true. But generally, you know, I think a lot of people don't care. Like, I think normal people don't care at all. And like, they're less and less. You can't get people to even want to.
We were having a conversation earlier about the Protestant versus the Catholic. And it feels like the same conversation as like the punk, like what punk was. And I was earlier when I interrupted you for a second, I was trying to make sense of is this issue with like what I'm seeing as like low info, like just like if I go onto Facebook, not that it doesn't happen on Twitter too, but if I go onto Facebook, my frustration is that I'm like looking at all this stuff. I'm like, oh my God, there's like something may be true, but there's so much lacking info that like people just aren't exposed to or whatever. And what punk used to not even be an issue. It's just like, I'm anti-establishment. It's as simple as that. There's something very simplistic about that. And I feel like Martin Luther had kind of a simplistic kind of take. Like it didn't require that much info necessarily for him to just be like, I'm against this. And I know why I'm against it. And it's my beef with like Marxist communism is that he's really good at pointing out what's wrong in society and what's wrong with the system. He doesn't seem to be very good at pointing at what we could actually do that would be better, which seems to me to be the very same problem I'm seeing from establishment Democrats is they can talk all day around what the problems are, but when it comes to actual like projecting good policy, they don't seem to have any ideas. They seem like they have no creativity in any way to actually do, you know, like to do something. Like it's all like we can recognize the problem. If that's all you're going with, I mean, that's most of Mein Kampf is just like him bitching about his struggle, which is what he sees as the problems. But where the solution is, I don't know. That's up for debate, right?
Yeah, it's like in the old days, they would like that. You know, so what they should do is you should like have to bid to try to be a dictator. And then if you don't succeed at what you were set out to do after 20 years, they kill you like they used to do. Right.
Right. Well, Marx was an anarchist. And I think people miss this because first of all, he was raised Lutheran, right? He was baptized as a Lutheran. He rejected religion completely and went on to write like the most extreme anti-Semitic, by the technical definition of the term, like the Jewish problem text. Like he was like, people are like, oh, Marx was a Jew. It's a Jewish conspiracy. It doesn't make any sense. The guy was like a total like anti-religion across the board, like atheist anarchist.
The old anti-religion demographic. That's a good demographic.
Well, it was all of Russia at one point. So
yeah.
I mean, for a lot of people, you know, the thing about religious, if you can get people to hate religion, then all of a sudden you can control them through the century of the self, right? That's kind of the idea of the century of the self is that the Nash endgame theory, or the idea that everyone's a criminal working against each other doesn't work in an ethical world where people would make sacrifices for the other person. It only works in Dante's Inferno, where everyone is selfish. So it's easier to control the world if you train everyone to be amoral, because then they believe you're genuinely making their own decisions when you put a stick and a carrot in front of them.
Well, what they do is they get people to back their cause, and then as soon as they get any inkling of what they're actually after, they freaking drop those people like they never meant anything to them. And that's the useful idiot phenomenon. But yeah,
it's like Melania coin.
That's gonna screw you, bro. That's gonna be worth something someday. You know?
I gotta say that Bill Hicks bit, when no, kill yourself. Like that whole thing. That's, oh my God, because that what he's describing there, what he's doing is the same thing as what ego is, where it always finds another back door. And that's what virtue signaling is, right? It's like when people feel this need to virtue signal, to make themselves out to be the most moral person in anything, like they're kind of doing the same thing. They're like, how can I work this that I'm the superior or whatever, as though they're humbling. You know, that's
kind of Catholicism too, a little bit, right? Of like these hierarchies and how long you've been a member, how much you've donated, or how many like part of, because I guess my understanding, the other part of being Catholic versus Protestant is that Catholic is through works and grace, whereas Protestant is through grace alone, right? Like those are through faith alone. So in the Catholic system, not only do you have to be doing things, but you have to be doing them in a Rockefeller standardized way in which the system can like check off the little boxes that says, yes, you've done these things. So you're basically adhering to this regulation and rules.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because like, and that's true, I think, to a fault, but Protestants will say faith without works is dead, because Paul said it. And then Catholics will completely permiss any failing of that rule if they like the person. They'll just be like, oh, well, we didn't get
because
to
they get purgatory.
We didn't get, like, you know what I mean?
But
like we can fix it.
But the faith of a mustard seed thing, like it doesn't actually like so there's a treatment. This is the issue with the whole dialectic is faith being the absence of reason, or faith being when you've reasoned something out to the fullest and now you're open to something beyond. So like in other words, like if you recognize like the thought loop where you're like, wait, I'm just going in a circle here. You recognize the limitations of intellect. That's supposed to be, as far as I can tell, even in just the gospel itself, what Christianity is, because his whole thing is like he's pointing out hypocrisy, he's pointing out people's contradictions all through the text, right? And it's like it's all reason, and he's presenting people with reason, and then people treat it that faith is to put aside reason. Where the shit did that come from? That feels to me to be the same thing of like this punk idea where it's like people aren't interested in the info, like not really.
I think part of that though, because, and maybe you can correct me here, but faith is supposed to be a belief in something without having the proof for it. So that if you had the proof, then faith is no longer required, right? So
all science is inference, ultimately, right? That's kind of a scientific axiom.
I think that's a weak definition of faith. So I think faith is a scientific thing where you have faith in a hypothesis. And so faith in a hypothesis is something where it's measured, it's successful, there's a rate of success, and eventually you say, well, even if we don't have all of the circumstantial proof that we can never have, we've reached a reasonable conclusion of being able to have faith in this hypothesis, right? That's where faith fits. And so to use that for theology is the same thing. You say, well, in circumstances, we've seen a lot of people live, we've seen a lot of people born, we've seen a lot of people die, and there's something going on where life seems to go on, life seems to find a way. People are similar, maybe there's some kind of an energy thing. We don't have all of the answers to everything, but I have faith that when people, that in this observation I've had, that people that live selflessly and are bettering each other, that this makes their atmosphere, this climate, their area of the world, their ecosystem flourish more. And so we should live that way. That's where you put your faith.
That seems a little universalist though, because
it's very Jesuit.
It's kind of omni-faith, to tell you the truth, but yeah.
Yeah, well, but like, the ironic thing is I heard it from a Protestant lady. My Protestant math teacher in 7th grade talked about faith that way and was very upset when people said that faith was the belief in something you can't prove.
Was she a devout Protestant?
She's a so devout Protestant. She was a cool lady, actually. I didn't like her at first, but then she gave me a bad grade, and I decided, all right, I'll take it seriously or something. I don't know.
Isn't it weird that Martin Luther King, people treat him as a saint? and yet he was a Protestant. I don't think Martin Luther King.
And Martin Luther, they
would
treat like a
approve.
black guy.
Well, it's just it doesn't. Well, oh, interesting. Yeah, Martin Luther King. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Wittenberg.
Well, because the terminology of saint is the oldest one. Like everyone knew what saints were, and then the Reformation, and they split off. But it's like you still understand the concept of a saint, even if you don't necessarily include saints anymore in your belief system, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I feel like the Catholic Church, proxied two things. You've got religions that they're absorbing because it's easier to murky the water than it is to completely burn all the books, right? So now we have no idea what people actually believed exactly.
Wasn't that Christianity in the first place, as far as like Roman Catholicism?
Yeah, I mean,
goes?
a lot of other religions, like, when they start, because they're not the religion before it. Christianity, it's like, what the hell's going on, and that's brilliant in a lot of ways, because you can kill a bunch of Celts and tell them that Saint Christopher, that is your former god, is a saint now, and it's totally fine.
Well,
right?
I think on the Celts too, the thing that I find one of the more hilarious ones is how we still call it Halloween, which is a short for All Hallows Eve, which is really talking about a holy. It's a Christian day on November 1st. So
what that day is? It's All Saints Day.
Everyone knows it as Halloween, but the actual ritual, 100% of the ritual is all from old Celtic and Druid ritual, right? True. Like Samhain. So the fact that the ritual is the exact opposite of what the day is named, but the church did that themselves because it used to be in May. And I think in like 9th century, they changed it to take over so that when they're like, oh, the Druids are throwing a party, well, we're throwing a party too. So it becomes the same party.
The
what's in the chalice?
The veil was open at the equinox, right? So they thought that like the ley lines, the Heilige Liegen, which are the holy lines, would open up. And these are where, if you're in Europe today, all the churches are. It's funny because when I went over there, I was like, how am I going to explain to people Tartaria and holy lines? It's like, oh, well, they understand this because all the churches are literally built on roads that they call holy lines. This is not like a metaphysical concept.
It's not the same thing as what the Theosophists were relating to as ley lines.
Well, I mean, in a way, though, it's interesting.
In a way, but it's not.
They built these churches on them that were built on holy sites that go back thousands of generations. So it is kind of like that.
Well, it's strange. If you look at like Scott Onstott's work, you can't explain it. There comes a point where it goes beyond the humans even did this consciously. Like you can see in the structure of a temple itself the measurements, but when it comes to like mapping the world, like there's an order that's not easily explained in that way. So I don't really know as far as ley lines go.
Well, I mean, point is, they believed in them, and they'd think that spirits were coming out, dead were coming out, and that you would interact with the things in between life and death.
The veil is thinner, yeah.
But that it's the beginning of like a holy day, like the beginning of a holy season, right? And then the Christians kind of believe the same idea, like it's the All Saints Day. For every saint, you celebrate everyone who's died as a martyr, a martyr meaning a witness, not as a person who's crucified necessarily, but somebody who was a witness to the miracle of this like new way of this messianic age, this way of living that is based on Christianity. So All Saints Day is amazing. It should be like the #1 holiday. Mormons should be way on this. I don't know why it's not like the LDS holiday should be November 1st. Like everyone around the world should know because they're getting gifts from Mormons. That's the way it should be.
But All Saints Day was not originally on November 1st. It was in the middle of May. And the specific reason that they changed it was so that they could convince all the Celts and all the Druids to basically convert over to Christianity. And it worked, but it worked in a hilarious way in which on a long timeline of, 1,000 years now, over 1,000 years, that the name persisted. So great job, Catholic Church, on like claiming that day and putting your name on it. But no one actually celebrates All Saints Day on the name named after All Saints Day. They are literally worshiping the same old Druid cult rituals that the church was trying to stamp out.
Thomas, I think it's. May is supposed to be the month of Sophia, right? It's like the Mother Mary month. It's the month for the maternal, the feminine aspect of God, the divine
May
mother.
1st is Wesak, right? And that predates. That goes back. That's like at the beginning of Buddhism, right?
I don't know.
The Wesak festival. So you'd say Beltane, but it also happens to be Buddha's day. You know.
Oh,
It's
okay.
Buddha's birth, the day that's recognized as Buddha's birth. I used to think it was Buddha's enlightenment was supposed to be that day, but it's
the 11th of May, or I guess this year was the 30th of April. Oh, that was in Myanmar. So yeah, it changes. It's different for different people, but I guess May is the most common. Sri Lanka, it's the 30th of May. Indonesia, 31st. Interesting. Cambodia, May 1st. I wonder why it's so different.
I was wondering, Thomas, you've been reading the Golden Bough. Are you reading like one of the editions that has all the stuff that the Catholic Church forced him to remove for like it was years?
No, apparently whatever version that I'm reading doesn't have any of those. So I would love to see what your version is of this. I've been on a Catholic Protestant kick lately just because I found out a while ago that my grandparents were both in Opus Dei. And I was like, okay, whatever, the Dan Brown thing.
I used to go to Opus Dei for a little while.
Well, I've been starting to look into it even more to just be like, all right, what is this whole Opus Dei thing about and everything?
I took Latin classes with Opus Dei for like a couple of years.
How old were you when this was happening?
Oh God. Well, I guess 11 to 12 was when I first was going like in the morning on 5 days a week, and then on Sundays. I didn't do it on Saturday for some reason. And then also later on, I got back. I was more interested in them again when I was like 15, 16. But then I stopped after about 6 months then. But yeah, 11, 12, it was 2 years of taking Latin class pretty much like 3 times a week with them. And
so I'm curious, what was their sales pitch to you? Because the general sales pitch was that you don't have to become a priest in order to serve God in the highest way, that you can also just live the work through your normal like day-to-day vocation.
Yeah, that's probably a roundabout way for it. But what it was for me, it was like I knew a lady who was from Switzerland who spoke Latin and like grew up in like a Latin speaking village in Switzerland and was very, very Catholic and was not happy with how California Catholics had completely skewed everything. And I kind of agreed because I like Protestants so much for all the things that they were doing that was skewed, but I didn't think the Catholics were doing it effectively or right. It was like they were half-assing it. And so it felt to me like the Catholics should just stick to what they're good at, which is like brutalism and intense Star Wars Sith vibe energy. You want the swinging, smoke, and you want the pale guy in the black robes, and you want the concrete. Because like in the 60s, the Catholic churches are just these, like if you go to Dominican Hospital, there's just concrete buildings that look like Holocaust, crematoriums.
They're supposed to represent the unfinished altar, yeah.
With stained glass windows and everything. Yeah, and the unfinished altar being represented by modern industrialism. That metaphor is just...
Isn't that like a core difference, like when you just look at like what Catholicism was and what the early Protestants were, is just like people who were more like just wanting to have like to be allowed to think critically and to freely communicate those thoughts, like and to make sense of something, like rather than just having to be told this is what it is, believe this or else.
Actually, it's ironic. You and I would think that because we like to read books, but not everyone's like that. And actually, I would say the grand majority of Protestants just didn't want to pay about baptism. Like a majority issue was that if you're born Catholic, why do you have to get baptized so young? Because you have to get taxed every year for being a Catholic. And how long has this existed for? It's still going on in Germany today. If I had said I was a Catholic or a Protestant, then they would force me to pay a church tax to upkeep the
Would it be 10%? Would they literally make you tithe?
I don't know, man. I can't even. I'm already freaked out by the fact they want me to pay a propaganda tax.
Right, that's the point.
Vaccine commercials. Germany's weird, but did you see that Germany wants it so that if you're a citizen of Germany, you can't leave the country without telling them, and like that you have to report that you'll be back within 3 months at any time and all this stuff because they don't want to lose their citizens.
Isn't that what a visa is anyway? I'm sorry.
I mean, you can go to America. You can leave a country as long as you want. You just can't stay in a country as long as you want. Some countries have visa laws Like if you were to go and if I go to Europe without a visa, it's 90 days, 3 months. But I could then go to Montenegro for another 90 days because there's no law.
Right.
I can stay in Montenegro as
Oh,
long
I
as I
see
want.
what you're
Or I could
saying.
go to
Then you just
Turkey or something.
like
Yeah.
literally if you're away, not just like in one place.
Right,
but,
like
wherever. Okay.
Germany is the
Germany's
only
laws are
country I
keeping
know
you
that's
in.
like we'll arrest you for not being here if we
Right. At
we can't
first I
just
was
go
like, isn't
away.
that
We
everywhere?
need
But
you in
no, I
case we
got
go
you.
to war with Russia. That's Germany
Jesus.
right now.
God.
And back to the boomers and being into the Volkswagen, right? Because that perfect arch back to Volkswagen making weapons defense systems for Israel this year. It's all coming full circle.
Interesting. Yeah, you ever seen that gold Volkswagen that like in Nazi Germany that they made? It's like a photo of like Hitler next to this gold Volkswagen, and the symbolism feels off the charts. Because when I see the Volkswagen symbol, I see 3 V's, I see 666, the number of the sun. I'm thinking of the end of the beginning of The Shining with Going to the Sun Road. Like it's just the beetle pushes the sun, like all of that symbolism. And then it's just like, because the Nazis were crazy about their fucking symbolism. Like you mentioned Wilhelm Reich's the mass psychology of fascism. Like half of that book is just describing this problematic mysticism that he saw in politics at that time. And I've shared this with you guys before. Like I used to have like when he would talk about mysticism, I was like, I didn't understand what he was saying. And then at a certain point, I'm like, oh shit, mysticism always drives these political movements. It's just not the deeper mysticism that, it's using something that was used for one end and using it for another. Yeah.
We need to make the sequel. Herbie Goes the Warbug, like the straight up Warbug.
Look at the dates of look at all the release dates of the Herbie movies. They're all like either on the solstice or the equinox.
They're clearly, yeah.
Why?
Actually, Herbie's great because Herbie talks about AI because it's like man doesn't mean to make what he does, but out of this animism comes this in love and spirit pour together into a thing which gives capacity for life, right? And it's only so much in the image of the creator. Like it's still in the image of the creator.
What's
but
the number on Herbie? What is the
53?
53.
Of course.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Which is his nickname in Spanish, Ocho. And they call him in Herbie Goes Bananas.
Well,
8.
that would reduce to 8, which is the chariot, which makes sense for a vehicle that's alive. Yeah.
Yeah. It's super numerological. There's a lot of crazy stuff in Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo. Falls in love.
Yeah. If you're well studied in occultism and then you do ayahuasca and you watch the Herbie movies while coming down, you'll see everything. I
feel like
profound.
Thomas isn't impressed when I can remember like chapter like 23 of the Morals and Dogma, but if I remember what happened in a Herbie's movie,
I am more impressed. Yes.
You had time for both? Yeah, fair. I was watching it while I was reading. What have you guys been up to, man? What's been up in your world?
Somebody says, if the Third Reich was obsessed with symbolism, what does that make syncheads? Well, I would say that anything can be used in any way. So
I would say Germans were obsessed with symbolism, and like Europeans were obsessed with symbolism, and Germans particularly needed a symbolism because they didn't have the Holy Roman Empire. They weren't like barbarians anymore, so they created this fake new culture that was like, hey, we've always existed. We're this new country now, Germany. We've always been Germans. It's a thing that we've been. You didn't know it, but Deutschland is always, even though it literally only existed for like 30 years, 25 years at that point. There wasn't a Germany before that. There was like Prussia, there was other things. So Germany made itself up and they needed symbolism. It's the same thing with Pepe the Frog. Like people need a meme, the meme starts to latch on, they start to put in, and so what do they compare themselves to? Well, they don't want to be Romans, they're barbarians. Well, the barbarians, what do we know about? Well, we know Scandinavians might have crossed Indo-Aryan land bridge. Indo-Aryans, that's interesting. Maybe we're connected to Sanskrit. We should read his book. And they're reading books from other countries, which makes you stand upside down. You never have to smell an untouchable. You don't understand about classism, so you just read this and have this fantasy picture of this like Agrabah Disney Aladdin story, and you're like, that's it, we're Aryans, hooray for us. And symbolism allows you to be co-opted because people want to believe in something that empowers them. It's like, you're special. Oh, really? I am? Yeah, you're actually the descendants of gods. Oh, I am? But I guess you said it to everybody. No, not everybody. No, just you. Anybody else don't, that's the control mechanism behind it. And it still works today on everybody, right? You're an American, you're special. The sacrifice, you could have more, but your sacrifices you're making are because you're decent. You don't need to buy that thing. Like you could have a credit card would let you do it, but you're just going to hold it together.
We're at a global place where the same rule, like if you existed like in the past, the way things were, like we weren't able to communicate with people all over the planet at lightning flash speed like we can here. So like if you're just like anti-establishment in the 60s or whatever, you're like that, you're relating to your experience and what you're seeing directly in front of you, or even in the news, but it's local, like Kent State or something, and you're just like, oh my God, this is horrific. But like we're at a weird place right now because it's like we can see that that as bad as America is in so many ways, that we are an evil in the world. There's so many evils in the world, and it should be more obvious to more people that it's like, wait, are we the lesser of the evils? Are we the great? Like, I don't even know for sure. Like, I just, it all seems to be like a clusterfuck of people.
Well, so back to the hippies and Hitler, because, the whole point of the Nazis is thinking, and the same thing with Cuba or anything else, Trump is thinking that the other bad that we've pointed out, oh, my camera died. Sorry. The other, dang it. Come back here.
Are you talking to us on a cellular phone?
I was, yeah. I was trying, because like it worked for a second there. All right, cool. Sorry. So the other, but I'm on my computer with the phone. It's like a thing you can do now. I love technology. So where were we? Remind me. What you say? Oh, hippies and Hitler. So the Nazis thought that they were the good guys. The Cubans thought they were the good guys. But once you kill the bad guys, you have to start becoming the good guy. And so the person that does that, kills the bad guy, is seldom good at being a perfect good guy after that point. I think that's maybe the point of the law.
After you kill the bad guy, you're supposed to just leave Oz, right? And just wake up in your bed.
But if you become the bad guy, which is the thing, is like you kill the Grim Reaper and you become the Grim Reaper, right? Like that's, you assume.
What would have happened to Dorothy had she decided after, because everyone bowed to her. So super golden bow, right? She throws the water on the witch melts, and then she's like, okay, I want to go back home. But like she's now killed both those freaking witches, and she's in with the wizard who's manipulating, controlling everybody. If she wanted to, she could just rule Oz. Like she could have been.
I mean,
I don't know how familiar you are with like
trying to take over for the rest of her life, manipulate her.
Have you seen the full Wicked series or read the books or anything?
So I watched a YouTube video that made me want to watch at least the first Wicked movie, because they were like, we don't know if this is a plot hole or if this is like literally just like if they did this purposely. That there's a point of reflection in Wicked for like major like hypocrisy and retardation that they don't know if the writers were trying to communicate that or if they're just literally that.
What's the point?
I have to find it again, but I saw a video that like I watched it and then I was like, oh shit, I actually want to watch Wicked now.
Well, the whole premise, I don't think I can really spoil it because it's an experience, David.
No, spoil away.
But the whole premise where they show Dorothy come towards the end, that the whole thing is just a big facade because they need Elphaba, Elphaba, which is named after Al Frank Baum, LFB, Elphaba. So Elphaba, the bad witch, she is kind of like ritualistically killed in front of all the Munchkin land because the Wizard of Oz needs to have some sort of a bad guy. Like he needs to establish this bad guy dynamic, and she like sort of unwittingly becomes that bad guy, but then embraces the character, realizing that the rest of the world can't operate unless it has this like duality to operate off of. So like in a way, it's almost like Gospel of Judas logic, where like you have to be the bad guy and sacrifice yourself in order to make the rest of the world good, and she kind of like takes that on.
That's Lord of the Rings meets Lord of the Flies, because Lord of the Flies is that it's just them. They're alone on the island once their teacher or whatever dies. And then they have to invent the beast. And the whole line is like, maybe there is a beast, maybe it's only us. They put the pig head on the pole for the beast or whatever. But same year, they went. One was a professor. One went to the same college at one point. The writer of Catcher in the Rye and Catcher in the Rye, the writer of Lord of the Flies, and the writer of Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is antithetical to that, but ultimately communicates the exact same point, because even though you're looking at all these warring entities and these kingdoms and all this stuff, like Lord of the Flies is one island, this isolated petri dish of a situation. Lord of the Rings is like, oh, it gets so elaborate, but in the end, it's all about freaking the one's own darkness and coming to overcome that, to throw the ring that rules them all into the fire. It still comes down to an individual level. We have seen the enemy, and it is me. So in Lord of the Flies, you can see they're their own enemy, right? They're projecting an enemy outwards, but really they're against each other. But then in Lord of the Rings, it's the same freaking thing. And Gollum, he's barely Schmeagol. Like, he can see, you know what I mean? Like, that this is who I could become.
Mormons,
you know?
like, they're actually like the real Lord of the Flies story was about these like Tongan Mormon kids. They got lost off their boat on an island, and they ended up doing the exact opposite. They like worked together. They made a bunch of food. They had plenty of extra food. They made instruments and played worship music. They made new worship God songs and praised the Lord every day until they found them like a year later. I mean,
sounds like Mormon propaganda to me.
That. Sorry?
A little bit. It sounds a little
like
bit
Mormon
like
propaganda to me.
No, it's not though. It's just a story about these kids they found that were, and there's more to it. Like, they stole a boat, and then they had to like pay for the boat, and they got arrested as soon as they got off the island for stealing the boat. Yeah. So there's a bunch of other stuff, but fundamentally they didn't kill each other and eat, themselves to starvation.
Right.
They worked together, and they ended up having extra time to worship God with. And that's what they did with the time, which is like, sure, they're Mormons, so like, woo, but like, more importantly, human beings aren't all Lord of the Flies. I think, in fact, it seems like that's just a sick part of someone's mind.
British people are.
So somebody here, Project Cheney, says Piggy is Frodo. That's pretty much what I'm saying. But I'm also saying that Piggy is Piggy. Piggy's being scapegoated on the island in the same way. The whole thing is about scapegoatism, right? Because they need a scapegoat, and they could project it out into the wilderness that there's a beast out there. Or shit, are we scapegoating Piggy?
Kermit of the Flies would be the movie. I would see it. I don't know. At least they didn't make it like, I thought they were going to do the same thing they did with Animal Farm to Lord of the Flies, and it was going to be all about communism. Like, that would have been. But the Simpsons already did it, so.
Oh God. Oh man. I have some. I'm probably super naive for this, but I have some hope looking at some of the contributors of the new Animal Farm that it could have some value. Woody Harrelson just wants to join in on. Really? Did you see Triangle of Sadness? Oh my God, dude. Good movie with Woody Harrelson's in it. It has this whole rant about communism and capitalism and whatever. It's fucking awesome. Yeah.
I don't think I finished. I think I started it. I'll have to watch it all the way through.
Yeah. Triangle of Sadness is like, don't read the description, just watch it. Cause like where that movie goes, unless you spoil it for yourself, you're not going to expect. But yeah, anyway, whatever.
If I had a dispatcher or like a sonar, radar, LiDAR thing, I need to get I think I need to do a Usenet. So like, you should probably, I have to talk to you, Thomas, later. You should help initiate me into the secret fraternal order of Usenet. As I think it's about time.
I've been here for like almost 30 years now.
I know, but I've been a Nutella torrent person, like, I'm not a Windows guy. I'm like
nothing to do with Windows.
It does.
That has nothing to do with Windows.
Yeah, unless if it's micro window pane 75, then you're
willing to pay for anything other than the hardware and the programmers who write it, then it's a weird thing. But life is what it is. Okay, so Paranoid American, I wanted to show off your website for a bit here in the middle. This is the thing. That way I can't leave. We'll come back to a topic afterwards. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I think I actually just sold out of those little sampler packs. I'll see if I can round some more out. But I think they're all gone finally. No, it's a good thing, because that means that now I can go and get more new occult calendars. I've also got these Illuminati pamphlets like Chick Track. I just ended up watching a Jack Chick documentary that's like renowned my interest in the entire format all over again. So I'm committed to get at least 10 of these things out. So I've got, I mean, the Golden Bow that I've been working on with David for the last like year and a half. It's ready, like it's done, ready to go, but I just have to get all these other ones released first. And you can help me do that by grabbing some of these existing comics so I can move them out of my living room and then order new stuff.
I get Final Cut on that, right, Thomas? You're going to send it to me, and if there's anything in there.
Oh yeah.
Okay. If I didn't get Final Cut, I don't think I'd freak out unless there was something just really retarded in there.
Last time that we were talking about it, I was like, man, I just started reading the Golden Bow, and now I want to like add more to it. I think really what I want to do is call it something more specific to Kubrick, so that because essentially it's about Kubrick more than it's about anything else, and it uses the Golden Bow as a vehicle to like explain his fascination with the Golden Bow.
Kubrick's final Golden Bow.
His final Golden Bow. I kind of like that, but it also needs the Chick Track style title that's like, you know, Satan's got you, you know, your last breath. It needs a thing, because the whole format is that if you were walking by and you saw this just laying out on a table somewhere, you'd be like, I'm gonna snatch that. What the hell was that? I need to snatch that right now. So I don't know what that is. I think it should have Kubrick in the name somehow. I just don't know what the final name is. So that's the only thing that's in flux, is the title of the cover page. Everything else I don't think is changing from what you've seen last, David.
It could be This Is Your Life. This isn't mythology. This is your life. That could just be what it's called.
I do like that one, because that was the original Chick Track. So This Is Your Life. I think that might be the winner.
But like, this isn't mythology, like right above it, you know.
Yeah, you could have like some other kind of underscore there or something, but yeah.
Well, I don't know if you're familiar that was Jack Chick's first comic, was called This Was Your Life, where he forces a man to rewatch every act that he ever did. He makes him rewatch telling dirty jokes and like all the horrible things that he did. Yeah.
Right. In Jewish mysticism, they say that your organs testify against you at the time of death. So, you know.
May you be proof that you can endure all things under heaven. You know, one of the best Jewish curses.
But there's so many to choose from. You know.
Yeah. May your children be like you to their parents.
I was given I'm trying to figure out what denomination or what angle it's from, but I was given a Protestant book that's just talking nonstop smack about the Catholic Church throughout it, but then they also get a couple like jabs in against the Jews, but in a way where it's like it's not their fault. They don't realize what they've done. The fascinating one to me was just that the Jews were looking at Christ, and correct me how much of this I'm misinterpreting, or the author was misinterpreting, but the Jews were kind of looking at Christ as this could be the Messiah, but then as soon as he dies, they're like, couldn't have been him. Like if you're the Messiah, like
it's like the witch trial thing. Like if she drowns, she's not a witch, you know.
So the fact that he dies means that he's not the Messiah anymore. But then the Christians at that point are like, well, he came back to life, so now he is the Messiah, and now we're waiting for the second coming. And if the Jews are waiting for the second coming, but they don't realize that, or they're waiting for the first coming, and they don't realize whenever they think the Messiah shows up.
Which is crazy, because even Mexicans know that like Mormon Jesus came back. How did the Jews miss it? But
they missed it. And unfortunately now whoever they end up looking at as the Messiah is by definition, by Christian terms, going to be the Antichrist. So it was almost like it was writing in a way of like these poor Jews don't know, you know, how screwed they really are.
Yeah, they messed up. The best is Bruce McConkey's History of the Church Part 1. He's a Mormon. And he wrote this book, and the church were like, dude, no. And they like took it off the shelves, and then they put the second edition out of History of the Church, where they cut out a bunch of stuff. But the first edition, oh boy, the things he says about the Catholic Church and like their allegiance to Satan, and like it's like, you know, it's
that's what's crazy is that Fraser got like in trouble for something that was so reasonable and so tame, which actually wasn't even separate from like what C.S. Lewis ended up saying, which is basically that all, like, if you're looking at the pagan roots of this thing, the anthropological basis for this thing, you're going to a place where you're saying that to acknowledge that is somehow to threaten the religion itself, Whereas C.S. Lewis would argue, how so? Maybe it imbues it. Like, what is the problem? Like, I mean, that was like when I first met my rabbi and I asked him about the Epic of Gilgamesh and like the Sumerian stuff, and he was like, "Oh no, that just goes to show that there was a deluge. Like, it affirms our own beliefs." So he's like, "Where's the? I don't understand why there's a conflict here. Like, if people are relating to their religion that anything could threaten it in that way, then that doesn't sound like that strong of a religion. Sorry, you know." So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think that's the thing. Religion is a lot more powerful when it's in the hands of somebody who's rejected from society. So Christianity was elusive. It was something that like you had to give up everything or it would be taken from you, like your land would be seized from you kind of thing. That's when Christianity was at its peak. And then once it becomes the state religion under Constantine, it just does the same thing other religions do, but maybe worse in some respects, because it's thinking that like you're a sinner, you have to be punished for this, which is not the mentality before it.
Relying on the illiteracy of all the people that you're telling what this thing actually says. Like that's what I keep coming up against.
Or, you know, Confucian legalism. Or
we had a great conversation a couple Sundays ago, me and Andreas, because you know I posed the question like, what is the actual distinction between like what is different in Christianity that changes at all with the gospel? Say it.
I mean, I said it was the difference between mercy and atonement, I think was the way I put it.
You said sacrifice.
Okay.
Sacrifice and atonement, because the whole thing is that he is the animal sacrifice, because you gotta like the context is everything. Like, what is the basis for this? The basis is the fall in the garden, Cain and Abel, right? So like and Abraham not killing Isaac, because we're told, okay, Hashem wants the animal sacrifices following the expulsion from the garden. Brother kills brother over that, right? So then you have, but then sacrifice your son, and then he's like, no, I don't want that. So what happens? Because this is the thing, Abraham is representing like, you know, a father and a son. You're going to kill your son, and then Christianity is, Father, why have you forsaken me? He is the last sacrifice. The last animal sacrifice for the Jews is Jesus, meaning you don't have to scapegoat anymore. You don't have to kill the two scapegoats, release one into the wilderness, kill the other one, red string tied to the temple door, 3 days go by, did the string turn white? Okay, it took its sins with us. Like, all of that is gone with Christianity. But the kind of the joke is, or what I perceive as a joke, is that at the same time, within 40 years of when that was supposed to take place, within a generation of his time, where he says, I have not come to destroy the law but to fulfill, you have the destruction of the temple when Judea was sacked, Jerusalem was sacked by the Romans. So everything changed with that anyway. There is no more animal sacrifices because there's no more temple. The main thing that Jesus was there to say that the Jews no longer had to do, they wouldn't have had to do anymore anyway, because they don't have a temple. So like, it's just, and so I'm like, and this whole thing about like Jesus's return, he seems to be talking about what Vespasian Caesar is going to do, because before this generation has come to pass, these things that he says will happen with Jerusalem did happen from the Son of God, who's Vespasian Caesar is in Rome. Titus Caesar is doing his work in Judea. So it's like, and all they were trying to do was get the Jewish people. We don't know much about them. We know a little bit. We don't really know what the Sicarii really were, other than that they went against the occupation. But they would conquer places, have them worship Caesar wherever they conquered, and put like a statue of Caesar. And then it's like, they would take their own religion and throw it against them. It looks like that's what happened, but I'm also of a kind of controversial view that in all likelihood, I think that the gospel itself, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, was most likely written by a Jew under duress who was adopted into the Flavian court, which is
right, based on the Q document, which is the quotation, all of the monologues and dialogues. So that's what they're always, anyone's amazed by the idea that there's quotes from Jesus, but you realize all of those quotes are being written from another book that they're pulling from, and that book's the one that they're hiding from us, essentially.
You can see, if you just do a comparison, and it goes beyond sync, you can actually apply like mathematically how it is that War of the Jews and Antiquities of the Jews by Josephus Flavius encode the gospel. Like there's so many parallels. It's just like it's too much for that to be a coincidence. And so yeah, I don't think it was just Josephus. I think it was like a panel. This is super speculative, but I think it was a but it's also, this is something that was popularized by Joseph Atwill, but like he says himself that this is, and you can find the backing for this, that he just took something and presented it, made it more accessible to the public. But this is something biblical scholars have discussed for ages, is the correspondences between War of the Jews, Antiquity of the Jews, and those 4 books of the gospel. So, and I don't see that as discounting Christianity. Like I say, like I went through ministerial training. I was raised with a heavy duty, scholarly Christianity. And then I spent 10 years studying Zohar with a rabbi and transcribing the Torah too. But I don't see this as threatening to Christianity at all. If anything, it just imbues it, because of course Christianity is grafted onto Judaism. Like, of course, this is the basis for that. Just looking at the gospel will show you that. The thing that I'm getting from like the influencers and the people with these huge platforms that are pretending, like, did you see Russell Brand on like, this is hilarious, but on Piers Morgan, where he's flipping through looking for the passage? It's just like, what the fuck you didn't come prepared.
I think
like,
my argument is that it's like, it was never about atonement. So it's one thing to say Jesus changed everything because, the Paul excuse is like, see, even if we needed, because you really believe we needed these sacrifices, even if we did, now isn't this enough? Maybe now we can stop. That's the argument that they need.
The point is that you can put it all on me.
Paul made this argument, though. Christ doesn't go around saying, hold on, little sinner at the well, let me go sacrifice a sheep really quickly, and then you'll be forgiven. Jesus does not do this. There's no point where Jesus says, like leper, let me just cut a chicken's head off over yours, and then you'll be forgiven. Jesus does not do this. There's no evidence of this. What Jesus does is tell you that you are forgiven without any atonement. Jesus constantly does this. Jesus goes around saying, you're forgiven, go forth, walk free of sin, you are forgiven, it's all gone now. The diseases, the demons, whatever is gone, your sins are gone. And there's never a sacrifice involved. So unless you're telling me this is like a space-time continuum rift where he's the son of God.
The sacrifice. God is playing Abraham.
There's issues to this. If Christ's sacrifice works past and present, it wouldn't work for the whole human aspect of what God is, right? So it has to be that the sacrifice only works for people that go after Christ. Are we agreed, or is this supposed to be that Christ's sacrifice is for everyone?
There's something debatable there, because it's in the nature of the gospel being the good news. The question is, and this is a question posed by the Who actually, and Tommy, is if you don't know, does it still apply? Tommy doesn't know what day it is. He doesn't know who Jesus is or what praying is. How can he be saved? So that's the fundamental question, and it has to do with knowledge.
If you're doing it already,
back to the garden, because when the garden was knowledge, that was the cause of the fall.
If you're doing it, unless everyone in nature, like my Nigerian African friend, if everyone in nature naturally does things the ancient way, like my Mormon friends who've studied all of these, different anthropological religions, and find that these root places, that they were more like Christians before Christian missionaries got there. And if everything's inverted, that these Christian missionaries are goats, like in Revelations, what it says, and they're not actually Christians. They're not Mormons. They're not the right kind of thing. They're just some kind of a thing that's teaching this atonement faith. That's not what Christ taught. And it's erasing this natural love of God that exists in indigenous people. Then what we're seeing is actually like Satan in the world working through holding the symbol of the sacrifice of the cross as this thing, which is taking away from the life of Christ. And what that would mean is that Christ came to teach us about mercy, not sacrifice, and that mercy is what happened with the fall of the first temple. Mercy is what happened with Abraham. Mercy is what happened with the fall of Adam and Eve, and that mercy is what happened with Cain and Abel. That none of it was actually about sacrifice, but sacrifices were made along the way. Like we make sacrifices, but not for atonement, but for mercy.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting question. My takeaway, just generally speaking, is that the focus seems to be on ending superstitions. So like a lot of the gospel is like, why are you doing what you're doing? Like ask yourself seriously, like, why are you doing that? Because if people are just acting out of superstition, then what the hell anyway? So it looks as though he's like, you guys have entertained this superstition for however long that has to do with that you have a scapegoat where you can project onto. He's like, fuck it, let me be that. I will be that for everybody. You can lay it all on me endlessly, and it's me. I'm the one.
I feel like it was less about ending superstition and more of a consolidation of superstitions, so that there was a more convenient system, because so many people had different concepts of what they needed to sacrifice on what days and for what reasons. So if there was just this one main central sacrifice, then it sort of beats everything else to the punch. So it was less of get rid of your superstitions and more like, again, like how Christianity sort of took form. It was like, you got this real complicated system. You're not really sure if you need to carry the one on Tuesdays or whatever. Just go with our thing. It's super streamlined. If everyone gets on board, then it'll be really hard to forget. And that becomes like the new aspect. But and to answer you before too, David, ironically, the Catholics, I think, are the only denomination that has this leniency for if you didn't know about it, which is called invincible ignorance. That if you have this invincible ignorance, and it means if you never had the opportunity to learn about being saved, and as long as you did the work, then you get the pass. Which this was the one thing I think that might have gotten me kicked out of Sunday school.
Like out of title of 3 South Park episodes.
Well, the question, and this was pre-South Park, but it's like, does that mean that if you were to spread the word to someone, but you sucked at it and they didn't believe you, now they're going to hell because you weren't a good salesman?
Mormon missionaries live with that every day. That's actually totally seriously, straight up. Ask them. They're worried about it. They're worried about giving you too much information.
And this actually blows my mind that out of the 40,000 denominations of Christianity that there are right now, all of them share one thing in common that you can't get around, and that is a requirement of faith. That there's some denominations where you can have all the faith, but if you don't do works, then you don't get in. You can have some denominations where as long as you have faith, you don't even have to do any works. But there's not a single Christian denomination that's like, if you do the work but don't have faith, you still get in.
I kind of am that way, though. I feel like plenty of people who don't know. I mean, it's a little complicated because I think people have faith whether they have faith or not. Like, you might not realize what you have faith in because you weren't taught to believe something that's not true anyway. But the knowable Tao is not the eternal Tao. So, but if someone, and I think this is what Jesus meant when he said, "I'm the way, the truth, and the light. No one gets to heaven except through me." It's like this is the way to behave, and that if you're doing things this way, you're going to get here. And if you don't do things this way, you're not going to get. In other words, it's like when you're doing yoga, like yoga is a technology that has a result on your body. And if you're doing that, this is what will happen to you. And if you don't, this is not what will happen.
Interesting point. That relates to that whole thing about like, if you're visualizing something in your mind, if you're fantasizing, whether it's for pleasure or violence or whatever, it's the same as if you had actually committed the act. I think that's a generally misunderstood thing, because I think this is my interpretation of it, is that I think that there's something to be said for if you're ruminating, if you're a ruminator and you're just ruminating all the time, it will show. Like, you can feel somebody, like, it'll change your musculature. Like, if somebody's just frowning all the time, like, it starts to take shape. Like, this becomes you. It relates to something a monk at Shasta Abbey told me one time about karma, where he was saying people think karma is just cause and effect. Like, if you do good things come back to you. If you do bad things come back to you. But he was like, our view of karma in Zen Buddhism is actually that in this moment, everything that's implied in what you're thinking. So if you're in your mind thinking what you can get from somebody, you're being selfish, you're being greedy, you're being whatever, like, that becomes your cosmoconception, and existing within that paradigm that's so limited in that way, everything that says about you becomes your karmic experience. Now you have to suffer based on these assumptions that are implicit in this line of thinking. So, like, what are you in relationship to other people? What are you in yourself? Like, that says that this is how you're going to relate to the world. So, like, if you're relating to the world in a limited way, you have a limited experience, and you have no basis for comparison. So you don't even know you're in samsara. You don't know you're in hell. You think that you're wherever you are, but you don't know anything else. So what do you got? And Wilhelm Reich said the same thing about sex as far as that goes too, that if people don't have a basis for comparison, if somebody wants to point something out to them, that if they have something dysfunctional or something, there's so much character armor there, they don't want to acknowledge it. It's because they don't know anything else. An orgasm for them is what an orgasm has been. They don't know what an orgasm could be, like, or anything for that matter. But that's where he applied it. But yeah,
everyone should get planned C-sections. Can
you get like a Ziploc zipper installed so you can just like easily reseal it as needed?
I mean, for trans women. But okay, I think we're near. Any final words? Is there anything else you guys wanted to say? I wanted to make sure that we showed David. Did I not show David's links yet? David, here you go. MK Ultrasound, making the greatest synchronicity films. It's got a series coming out really soon. You guys are going to have to watch an entire series that he's put together. This amazing editor over in, I think in New York or from New York and Arizona. Is that right?
Arizona. Yeah. Ryan Page and I've been working on a project for, I don't know what it's been. It feels like it's been over a year now. It's like, Thomas and I have this project with the Golden Bough thing. And like, I feel like I'm relating to both things, like as like a Kubrick film, like it's like, or even like a Tool album where it's like, well, like
we're working on this thing.
You're working on this thing. It's like, when it comes out, it'll come out. But the longer that it's taking is in large part because of the editing process and the back.
It's long and there's just that good. There's multiple episodes. Yeah. I heard some clips of one of the episodes that have been edited so far. So it looks like if it's more of that, it's going to be great.
We got the first episode done pretty much. And we're getting towards the end of the second.
It looks like he looks like he edited for HBO in the old days. Like he must really have skills that are classic and like cinema. He's good.
He's enjoying himself, and that's a positive. You need to have people being passionate and enthusiastic around what it is that they're doing, because it comes across in the product. So yeah, sweet. I think Thomas's comics kind of speak to that too. You can see how much fun is happening to produce the thing, and it comes across, so yeah.
Based. Well, all right, buy more comic books from Thomas. Support David, try that audio software, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for being here, and we'll get back to it. Peace.
Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.
Synctank.